And welcome, everybody, to another wonderful week right here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics, of course. If you're listening on the radio or TV, you want to check out old episodes, you want to know where to go to, stay in tune with what's going on right here in Kentucky, you can do that by visiting theandrewshow.com. Once again, that's theandrewshow.com. So earlier this week, or well, depending on when you're listening to this, last week, depends on how you define the start of the week, of course, because if you're listening on the radio, it's Sunday. If you're listening in a podcast format, it's Monday. And if you're watching on TV, it's Wednesday. So last week, there was a kerfuffle that happened at UK, University of Kentucky. For background here, of course, the president has signed an executive order stating that publicly funded colleges and universities are to cease with the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives because, well, they're racist. That's what they are. When you're admitting people and caring about things like immutable characteristics, like your skin color, you're kind of being a racist. I'm just saying that's what you're doing. But also here in Kentucky, a law was passed, I believe last year, that also went to ban DEI teachings, CRT teachings, those kinds of things as mandatory courses within universities and denies them being implemented. A little bit of a fight, of course, that happened there because the president of the Senate, Robert Stivers, he's good friends with the head of the Kentucky's post-secondary board. So that's the people who oversee colleges and universities, the public ones here in, well, private ones too, here in Kentucky. And he's actually an author on a few DEI books, textbooks. So he was profiting a little bit from it. So there's a little bit of fight there, but we did end up getting it passed there last year. But despite that, UK has kind of kept it going, has kept it going. And this video came out from AIM, Accuracy in Media, headed up by Adam Juliet. And I want you guys here. This is like a 2-3 minute clip from it. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Hopefully that's not like so loud.
Oh no, it's one of those things that I know there's been like policies flying everywhere, but I mean it's the commitment of the college to these things, even if it's not explicitly said, because it's like one of those like things that but it's like it's there and it's an important like part. It's important part of the curriculum, and I mean if you look at the syllabuses, especially, it's there.
Yeah. Okay.
Because people, you have to teach these things.
Is that you in the video? So the woman asked if the university was still doing DEI because she was moving from California, but she was worried that it was against the law here.
I have no idea. I don't remember any of this.
You don't even remember it. We have it on video. So, is there DEI at the University of Kentucky? Is that in this
I
department?
honestly don't know what you're talking. You feel scared.
Does the department have a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion here at the University of Kentucky?
I'm just a staff worker here.
And I'm just asking, you had said previously that it's a focus of the university, even if it's not explicitly said. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Is that true?
I'm not going to comment on this. Like this is a nuanced issue.
Please take the time to explain it with all the nuance you'd like.
I don't want to talk about this with you. Like I feel like this is inappropriate.
I won't interrupt. You could provide as much nuance as you'd like.
Justin, what's going on?
How are you doing?
This gentleman.
I'm Adam Gillett with Accuracy Media. We had received a report that the department was pushing DEI in defiance of the executive order and state law, and Mr. Condor explained that it's a commitment of the university, even if it's not explicitly said, referring specifically to DEI.
I didn't say that.
We have you literally on video saying it.
So this is a staff member who's just here trying to do his job.
I totally understand. Can you provide some nuance for it?
This is not appropriate to be coming into our workplace and trying to ambush people like this.
Honestly, like shaking. Like,
yeah.
Does the department have a commitment to DEI? Is that true?
I want to know who you're working for.
Sure,
and
with
why
accuracy in media, we're worried about people breaking the state law, and we're worried about the university potentially losing funding for breaking law and executive orders.
Well, that's something to discuss with the university legal counsel.
Sure.
Not a staff.
I think you may want to.
Who's here trying to do his job. So I'd
He
like
said
to
that-
ask you to leave.
All
please.
right. Have a great day.
So there you go. There's the accuracy in media video. And, you know, I got to say, if I had Adam here, I would tell him that he targeted this man because he wears stupid hats. Anybody who wears a hat like that is obviously going to be pushing DEI. So I actually have Adam Juliet, the president of Accuracy in Media, the man you saw there in the video, on the line with me today. Adam, thank you for cutting out some time to talk to us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So first I got to ask, did you target this man because of his headwear?
I'll tell you, of all of the people that we've exposed at the University of Kentucky, and we have many more videos from that university alone to come, I would say he was probably the individual in the most mainstream attire.
Really?
Yes. Not to besmirch the wardrobe choices or the style of the other individuals, but it doesn't improve from here if that's the way in which we're grading.
So you have more videos to come. Does it mainly just deal with more of this kind of DEI stuff that's been integrated into the university?
Exactly, it does. And not just from the University of Kentucky, but multiple videos from several universities each across the state.
Oh, so across the state of Kentucky then.
That's right. Several
So
more from
other
UK,
universities.
several from other universities.
So there's some people out there right now that might be sweating some bullets that they're like, I had a conversation with a student about DEI. I wonder if somebody recorded that and is going to confront me with it. Before we dig down too much into it, well, here, I'll ask you this. What made you decide to zero in on Kentucky for this issue? Now, we on the show have talked about this, that UK was clearly still doing DEI. When you look at their DEI department and who was in it, they just dispersed them amongst it. Like the old head of the DEI department, I believe, is a special advisor to the president of the university. They didn't fire anybody. They publicly said that. They just reassigned them, quote unquote, new duties and put them in new departments. And so we've covered a little bit about that, how much they're still spending on it. But what made you say, you know what, Kentucky is a state that I think we could zero in on here?
Well, we don't discriminate. We target every red state that has banned DEI from higher education. In the past year, we've released investigations from Florida, from Oklahoma, Ohio is coming up very soon, North Carolina, Alabama, Iowa. And, you know, one of our investigators has been so effective at this that we jokingly refer to her as the angel of unemployment. Because everywhere she shows up, once we release the investigation, those people are out of a job. You know, across the state of North Carolina last year, I think a half dozen administrators lost their jobs after appearing in our videos. And these weren't entry-level people. It was the dean of students at UNC Charlotte lost her job after appearing in one of our videos. So your point about people sweating probably is true. But ultimately, it's abundantly clear when we capture multiple people at each university that it's not one bad apple, and if you fire them, that'll resolve the problem. It is a rotten orchard.
Yeah, it's I think it is so deeply ingrained that it's kind of without totally cutting out the rot, it's going to be hard to save the rest of the apples orchard. Of course, you know, you've got to kind of get rid of those trees in order to make it happen. So you said there's other universities in Kentucky. We'll maybe discuss a little bit about you know, across the board what you'd like to see, but also discuss about how this video exactly came about, because I think people are interested to kind of know. Anytime they see this, you'll see a lot of claims from people that says, oh, that's taken out of context. That's not what happened. You're blowing things out of proportion. And also be discussing what should happen to these colleges and universities that engage in this kind of thing. So we'll be discussing that when we come back here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. If you like what you're listening to, you want to make sure you stay up to date with us. You can visit theandrewshow.com. Once again, that's theandrewshow.com. You can also, if you're listening on the podcast format, leave a 5-star review. It helps out and it helps spread the word, of course. But we'll be back here with Adam in just a few short minutes. Delicious. Oh, what's in here? Oh, well, what's in my tumbler here, the Andrew Cooperrider Show tumbler, available for sale at brewed.store. is 1776, a brewed coffee, a Kentucky proud product that's roasted right here in Kentucky, of course. You can pick yourself up a bag at brewed.store. Free shipping on orders over $85. And they're sold in per pound, both ground, whole bean, and K-cups. If you like your little K-cup machines, we have that for you too. And the best part is per pound, it's cheaper than most of the boutique freedom-loving coffees out there. And this one's made right here in your own backyard. I know that's fantastic. So pick yourself up. We've got 1776, a French roasted dark blend, which is historically funny because, of course, the French financed the revolution. And then also we have one of our other signature blends, Tyrant's Tears, a coffee that we meticulously harvest from famous tyrants like Annie Bashir, Pol Pot, and, of course, Mao. Additionally, we have other single origin coffees such as Cameroon Pea Berry, Kenya, Peru. Fantastic, fantastic blends. Go ahead and pick yourself up a bag today. Not only will you be supporting the show, but also you'll be putting in your mouth a delicious and tasty black nectar called coffee. So order yours today. Brewed.store. Once again, it's BREWED.store. Brewed.store. Free shipping. Orders over $85. Pick yourself up a bag and pick yourself up one of these spiffy tumblers. Andrew Cooperrider Show tumbler today. Once again, that's brewed.store. And you're back here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. We're joined by Adam Juliet, head of accuracy in media, doing investigative undercover journalism right here in Kentucky. I don't believe you live in Kentucky, but you'd said you visit red states where the state has taken the step to outlaw diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have these undercover investigations to discover it's still going on in colleges and universities. In the last segment, you said there's many universities in Kentucky that you've dug into. You'll be releasing those videos. One question I think you hear from a lot of people on the left, I know when I talked about your video and talked about UK being caught red-handed online, there's a fair amount of people on the left that say, look, you're just a bigot. Why does this matter? Why do you care? This is a nonsense issue. Adam, why have you really zeroed in on these DEI policies?
Well, a lot of people misunderstand DEI and merely think it's kind of a modern version of affirmative action, when in fact, it's tremendously more dangerous than that. DEI is a prism through which the radical left sees the world. They break down everyone in the world into classes of oppressors and classes of oppressed. And they justify using violence as oppressors. They say that it's merely resistance. That's how they literally defend at Columbia and Harvard the October 7th terror attack, because they define Israel as an oppressor state and the Arabs as oppressed. And thus, it's okay to go to a music festival and murder and rape women. That's merely resistance to oppression. So this is the prism through which they're now pushing every facet of education on all these college campuses. And I say this as somebody who's been to college campuses in, I think, 48 states over the last 20 years. I volunteer for an organization and I train college students across North America. And every campus, when you show up, they say the same thing. You wouldn't believe how bad it is there. People don't want to think that their alma mater, particularly in a red state, is captured by the far left. They know that maybe the professors are lefties, but they're used to that. But higher education today is far worse than anyone realizes. In the past, I think it's 20 years, higher education has created 20 administrative positions for every one new faculty position. And all of these administrative positions, they're not secretaries, they're DEI staffers, they're LGBTQ staffers. They've essentially turned your alma mater into an activist organization that runs a med school on the side. They're saddling students with debt so that we can fund a whole cadre of taxpayer-funded activists. That's outrageous.
Yeah. So when it comes to setting up these videos, because I'm always interested in these kind of undercover journalist videos. I wish I could pull them off. I think, unfortunately, to the radical leftists in the state, they probably recognize me right away. But so, maybe I could pull off a mustache type move or something. But when it comes to setting up these videos, how do you guys go about it? Do you just call up? Do you have someone specific that somebody tips you off to and says, hey, look, if you're interested in this university here, there's some people in this department that are causing issues, or is it more just it's such a target rich environment? Geez, we can just throw somebody in there and we'll find somebody.
That's exactly it. We cast a wide net and we go pretty much every university in all of these red states. And more often than not, if we're able to find someone to chat with, we find somebody who brags about breaking the law. And admittedly, we did have a trustee of a red state that we exposed who hit us up and said, well, you went after this one department, and it looks like you go after only that department regularly. You should go after A department and B department and C department as well, because they're also, in my opinion, breaking the law. This is a trustee of a university. So now we've replicated that and we hit all of those departments at every university we visit. And the crazy thing to think about is we're not embedded for 6 months, slowly earning the trust of these people, becoming besties over the course of a semester. We're there for 5 minutes. And if in 5 minutes, they're so brazen and so happy to brag about circumventing or breaking laws, what would they tell us if we were there for 6 months? Because, if you were breaking a law, would you tell somebody who you just met, a stranger off the street, about that? Probably not, unless you felt so unaccountable, like no one could ever go after you, so confident in your job security. And that speaks to the kind of people we're dealing in higher ed. They think that they are entitled by God for our tax dollars, no matter what they want to do. It's insane, the radicalism, and it's insane, the
Let's
smugness.
calm down, Madam. I don't think a lot of them believe in God, okay?
Yeah, fair point. I would say they're on an evangelical mission if they believed in God.
If they believed it. Yeah, the radical leftism has replaced their religion.
That's right.
That's their God.
Yes.
The self, right? So when you're able to just cast a wide net, you mentioned there's a few departments you typically target. What are those departments that you find are just rank with these kinds of people that wear cabbie hats and talk openly about DEI and breaking the law too? Because in the video, he didn't just talk about DEI like he was unaware he was breaking the law. Correct me if I'm wrong, your undercover reporter there actually said, well, so you still do this even though it's illegal in the state. I'm worried about coming here because it's illegal in the state. Is it still done here anyways? That is what they asked, right?
Everything. Yes, it is. And I think he said that's embedded in everything that we do. And he's not lying. People want to think that it's just the DEI department. No, I mean it when I say it's a prism through which they view the world. Thus, they push the principles of DEI into every facet of education. Just as in K through 12, they push critical race theory principles into every facet of education, including math class. Like, that's what we're working against. That's what we're up against. That's what we're dealing with here.
So what are those departments? Just out of curiosity, you said there's a couple of departments that you typically target. What are those?
Well, it's an ongoing investigation, and we're investigating other states as we speak. So I don't want to reveal the most obvious targets, but I'll tell you, when I go and visit them, because I go back, of course, and confront these individuals and give them a chance to speak and add nuance. And in case they think they were out of context, please take all the context you'd like. When I visit these departments, you'd think you're at the Democratic Socialists of America headquarters, because it's crazy far left propaganda all over the walls everywhere. It's crazy far left flags. Then they've got their own little bookshelves with crazy far left literature everywhere. And it's one thing if you want to have Marxist books in the library, knock yourself out. We should have all viewpoints in your school library. But why do all of these departments have essentially far left propaganda and far left books everywhere? That's why I say it feels like you're visiting an activist organization. These people talk about inclusion. Imagine being a Christian conservative kid who's attending college, and everywhere he goes in his building with the administrators, he's seeing far left Marxist, anti-Christian, anti-American propaganda. I don't think that would feel very inclusive.
So you come back and you do confront them, saying, "Hey, look, this is what we got you doing. How do you have anything you want to add? Do you have any defense for yourself?" Some people would see that as charitable. They saw that as, I guess, attacking. They were very uncomfortable by the entire idea that you would ever ask them questions. Do you ever, have you ever been attacked physically, or have you ever felt unsafe when you're doing that?
In all of our work on college campuses, I've never felt unsafe with an administrator. But obviously, if you're familiar with our work we did against anti-Semitism in higher education, definitely students and off-campus agitators are not friendly. From the fall of 2023 to the fall of 2024, I was swatted 13 times, which is a lot. And I would get death threats via
that's a
email
lot.
every single day, all day long. My family would get death threats. I would get doxxed. They would share all of my private information on social media, so much so that people were signing up for credit cards in my name. So yeah, the radical students, particularly in higher education at Ivy League universities, you know, they would bash our mobile billboards with bricks. They would throw rocks at it. I was spray painted one time. Now, generally, when I'm going to talk to students on college campuses, I bring off-duty law enforcement with me. But the administrators, at least on a personal one-on-one level, are pacifists, thankfully.
Yeah, yeah, they seem to be more so. I mean, he felt very you know what? It almost seemed like watching it. It seemed like a bad movie. Like if I watched a bad movie where someone's being like confronted and they're trying to act like, I don't know, like that's exactly how they would behave. How he behaved when you confronted him is like, I don't even know what you're doing. Like, it's so uncomfortable. He's so clearly caught red-handed. Well, I am curious too how you ended up getting into this side of things when it comes to it. What brought you to kind of saying, look, this kind of undercover journalism, I think there's a need for it. I want to get involved in that.
Well, previously, I became the president of Accuracy in Media back in 2019. Before that, for 3 years, I was the vice president of Project Veritas, where I really gained an appreciation for hidden camera investigative journalism. I would say it is the most honest and most important kind of journalism. When you read a New York Times article, they're quoting somebody, and oftentimes it's an anonymous source. How do we even know if the anonymous source exists? When they quote people in newspaper articles, how do we even know if they were quoted properly or if they were quoted in context? Anybody who's ever been interviewed by a print reporter probably feels like they've been misquoted by a print reporter. Whereas with hidden camera investigative journalism, you see the questions, you see the answers, you see the person in full living color. And we don't just release little snippets, we release long form versions of the videos so you can see the full context. And oftentimes, if a school district or university hits us up and appears to be an honest broker and says, hey, we take this seriously, we would like to review the full raw footage, we'll even send them the entire full raw footage. I don't know any other news outlet that does that. I don't know that the New York Times does that. I don't know that local TV does that. I've never heard of any other outlet doing that. It is by far the most honest and important form of journalism, I think.
Yeah, well, when we get back, we'll discuss what should happen in this situation. We'll ask Adam how he thinks universities can improve on these kinds of items and dig in a little bit more to the issue because it is important. It's happening right here in your backyard in Kentucky. Your tax dollars specifically, not just federal, but your state tax dollars. I mean, we're giving them millions of dollars a year. Your kids are incentivized to go to these schools through special tuition rates. You're going to want to know what's going on there. You're funding it whether you want to or not. It's important that we follow up on that. So we'll have that when we come back here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. We'll see you back here in a few short minutes. Do you hear that? I do. It's Bashir crying. Why? Because you're listening to the Andrew Cooperrider Show. And I thought to myself, why should we let those tears go to waste? Like any good capitalist, I said, that is a resource that can be sold. So we capture those tears from Andy Bashir and other famous tyrants like Pol Pot, Mao, whoever else. And we collect them up and we put them into a delicious coffee called Tyrant's Tears, available at brewed.store. Once again, that's brewed.store. You can pick yourself up a spiffy Andrew Cooperrider Show tumbler while you're at it and get yourself a nice bag. Free shipping on orders over $85. We have Tyrant's Tears in 1776, our signature blends. We also have flavored coffees such as Swiss chocolate and bourbon for those of you that want a little kick without the buzz from, alcohol. You'll get the buzz from the caffeine, though. Check out today. Brewed.store. This is a Kentucky Proud product, roasted right in your own backyard. Brewed.store. Support the show. It's cheaper per pound than most of those other boutique coffees. And it's available whole bean, ground, K-Cups. However you make your coffee, we got you covered. And you're back here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show, joined by Adam Juliet. He is the president of Accuracy in Media, AIM. And he's recently done some undercover investigative journalism right here in your own backyard, right here in Kentucky, with a video went viral here in UK where they were caught dirty red-handed still continuing DEI policies on camera, admitting that even after the person asked, hey, it's illegal to do DEI here, are you still doing it? He responds in the affirmative. He says, oh yeah, for sure, definitely doing it. And so joined now by Adam. You've done this in a lot of other states, and you've followed up on these issues in other places. What typically happens, and what would you like to see happen here in Kentucky in response to your journalism?
Great question. Depends on the state. You know, in North Carolina, administrators get fired left and right, as I said, including a dean of students. In other states, they really look the other way and nothing happens. Alabama, we released 2 devastating investigations and not much came of it. Most commonly, the elected officials who were responsible for the law banning DEI, they look the other way so hard that you think they're going to break their neck, because we show
Why do you
that
think they do that?
Well, because I think in many states, they don't pass these laws to actually solve problems. They pass these laws to placate their voters and win Republican primaries. You know, Kentucky, that does not seem to be the case. We've been reached out to by multiple representatives who were responsible for the law, and they are as outraged as you and I, which is an incredibly welcome sign to see. But in many states, the laws are purposefully toothless. Honestly, only Kansas has a worthwhile DEI ban, because only Kansas has a ban with a reporting mechanism and strong legal consequences. Kentucky is better than some. I think the attorney general can bring civil charges against the people, but it's still a relatively mild ban compared to the Kansas one. But I would say anybody caught bragging about breaking the law while collecting a government paycheck should be prohibited from ever working for the taxpayer again. If you've got a pension, that should be stripped. And most importantly, we need major reform to higher education in America.
Yeah, and I think too, and I mentioned this in the first segment. I mentioned this in the first segment about Dr. Aaron Thompson. He is the head of our post-secondary group in Kentucky, so he oversees these universities. And I think it is worth bringing up, because the first time we tried to pass this bill, it died. And then it came back, and it was a little bit, cleared up a little bit. And it was able to get passed. But one of the reasons why it was killed was a lot to do with, so our Senate President, Robert Stivers, he's good friends with Dr. Aaron Thompson. They come from the same community. They're about the same age. They knew each other growing up. And so Aaron Thompson's the president of the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education. And so Dr. Aaron Thompson, here's some of the books he's wrote. And these are textbooks that are included in college courses. Here's ones here: Diversity, Anti-Racism, and the College Experience. Examines barriers to diversity, such as bias, stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination, and promotes appreciation and anti-racism in college contexts. So do you think at all the fact that the president of our Council on Post-Secondary Education, the people in charge of enforcing these regulations on colleges, the fact that the head of it literally makes money off DEI and anti-racism, do you think that at all affects whether or not we're going to see some actual movement on this issue here?
That is why I say these institutions are rotten to their core. You know, we all want to celebrate our alma mater. I went to UF. UF is just as rotten, although now improving somewhat under DeSantis, as the University of Kentucky. And even my most ardent conservative friends still want to celebrate UF oftentimes for sports reasons. And I imagine many Kentucky alumni are the same.
Yeah, I mean, UK basketball is like a religion.
Yeah, absolutely. You can celebrate your alma mater sports while recognizing that the academic side of things, which I'm told should be a priority of higher education, academics, it's rotten to the core. However bad it was when you were in college, because of the massive class of administrators they've hired since then, it's far worse. This DEI stuff, the anti-racism stuff, isn't one class. It's every class. As they tell us willingly, it's embedded, it's baked in. They teach everything, whether it's math or art history, through a prism of anti-racism, social justice, and DEI. Everything they teach these students is taught through the prism of white people are oppressed, white people are oppressors, minorities are oppressed. America is an oppressor state. They teach as a prism through every facet of education that capitalism is inherently racist. America is systemically racist. And that's baked into everything that they do. These institutions are rotten.
So you've been doing this a little while. What is the most jaw-dropping moment you've gotten from a college or university kind of doing these undercover? It doesn't even have to necessarily be about DEI, but what have you seen that's just made you be like, I can't believe this?
You know, in higher education, it's never a surprise because we suspect it and we know that it's just everywhere, even in the most red states. I would say some of our K through 12 stuff was actually even more jaw-dropping. I was in a rural county in rural Tennessee, 3-1 Trump over Biden, and an administrator was bragging about how progressive their K through 12 curriculum was from an equity point of view. Like, I'm in the middle of nowhere in a town with one blinking traffic light. And this lady is so proud about how progressive their curriculum is. And like, do you think the moms and dads in that school district want that? I don't think so. An administrator in Ohio, I sat down with this guy for about 45 minutes outside Columbus, Ohio. And it felt like sitting down with a Bond villain in the third act of the film when he lays out all of his master plan. This guy was bragging to me directly about how he deceived parents who called with concerns about the district pushing radical CRT, DEI type principles. And he bragged to me with examples about how he deceived parents. That guy thankfully is unemployed, but you know, these principles are still in every facet of K through 12. I'm never shocked when I see it in higher ed. Although, you know, I think most people would be shocked if they realized how far gone the rot is. But when I see this stuff in kindergarten, that's when it's really jaw-dropping for me.
So you mentioned laws getting teeth in it. Is there any laws you think people should, or not people, do you think Kentucky should make to their DEI law? It seems like you've researched it, you've dug into it, you know, you're paying attention to that as you go into these universities to ask these questions. So you know pointedly what to ask, what not to ask. So you know what's breaking the law and what's not. What improvements do you think Kentucky still has to make on its DEI laws, at least in colleges and universities? K through 12 is its own animal. For some reason, we passed it in universities before K through 12, which makes like no sense to me at all. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if this stuff is inappropriate for a college senior, what's it doing in kindergarten? Is my question.
That's what I said. I said, why aren't we starting there where you legally kind of have to go? You know, you legally have to provide your kid a K through 12 education of some sort.
Yes. And we could, discuss whether or not college students should be learning about Marxism, but what the heck is it doing in first grade? I remember we were going after Texas because they banned it in higher ed, but not K through 12. Finally, Abbott responded to one of our investigations and said, we're going to ban DEI in K through 12. And he did. But, you know, we've exposed so many Texas school districts that ignored their CRT ban. You know, K through 12 education in many cases is much worse than higher education. But there's a threefold solution. First, as I said, anybody caught doing this stuff should be banned from ever working for the taxpayers. Again, their pensions should be stripped. Secondly, you need a massive, radical reform of higher education, much like DeSantis did at New College in Florida, where New College was famously one of the most far-left, wacky universities in America. He wiped out the entire trustees and put reformers in. They're wiping out departments. They're wiping out the entire focus of the university and instead reverting to actually caring about academics instead of activism. This is a situation that requires major reconstructive surgery, not a Band-Aid. And that requires a lot of work. That requires bravery. It's not easy for people to acknowledge that higher education is rotten. But anybody who spends more than 10 minutes walking around these departments undercover, it's unabashedly clear that that's the case. So you need a law with teeth like Kansas that actually has penalties and a reporting mechanism. These people need to be banned from government work, and you need major radical reform like they've done in Florida.
Well, when we come back, we'll talk about what you can do to make a difference here with Adam, and also just kind of be discussing what to look out for as you're taking your kids maybe around colleges. So that way maybe you have a tip for accuracy in media of where they should be looking. We'll have that when we get back here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. And you're back here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show, joined by Adam Juliet, the president of Accuracy in Media. We've been discussing this viral video that his group put together undercover journalism at University of Kentucky regarding them continuing to teach and integrate DEI practices into their policies, even after state law and executive order has banned such practices. Adam, let me ask you this. We talked a bit about the changes in laws that need to happen, the differences made. You are clearly very passionate on the issue. Correct me if I'm wrong. The hope of your journalism is to make real change, so that way you can stop reporting on this one day. You visit these colleges and that no longer bears fruit, which is interesting to have a goal to kind of put yourself out of work, but that's what it is.
There's plenty
I'm
of
sure
other
there'll be
dragons to slay.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be another dragon for you. So what can people in Kentucky do to make a difference on this issue? They feel fired up by the reporting going on. What can they do?
Sure. So, of course, on our website, aim.org, you could see all of our latest hidden camera investigations, as well as the upcoming ones coming from Kentucky. They'll also be on all of our social media platforms. But as you said, you could visit DEIinkentucky.com, DEIinkentucky.com, where you could send one message that goes directly to all of the relevant elected officials regarding this issue, including the Attorney General. You could use our pre-written message or write your own, DEIinkentucky.com. It takes 10 seconds. All you got to do is put in your name and email and hit send, and automatically all of the relevant elected officials will hear from you on this. It's that simple.
Yeah, and I encourage people, if you go to DEIinkentucky.com, just from an activism standpoint, that tool is super useful. It is best if you don't send that pre-form letter, but write your own, of course, so that way they know somebody. It's not just, the way legislators work a lot of times, they may just, that's just some random bot for all I know. But if it's a different road email, you include your name and your address, so that way they know you're a constituent and everything else. That certainly has a lot more impact than just saying the form letter. But if that's all you got time to do, then go ahead and do it. We've done a similar thing in the past on different issues where we have a tool where you can email everybody with one click. And we do pre-write an email as well, though the feedback I've gotten is just, hey, if they edit that email, we pay a lot more attention to it, of course. I will also say, if you want to talk to a legislator about it, you can call the LRC message line here in Kentucky. That's 1-800-372-7181, 1-800-372-7181. You can leave a message for your legislator saying, hey, why is this still going on? Don't you guys care about a law you passed being ignored, right? Just from a personal standpoint. So you mentioned several times that you have other universities here in Kentucky. I mean, we can guess what those are. Is there any kind of time frame you can give us on when we can expect to see more about this so people are watching out for it?
The unfortunate thing is we have so many videos and there are only 7 days in a week. And, we're almost wishing we could have more days in a week so that we can have more opportunities to release these videos. They'll be coming out over the next month or so, as well as videos from other red states where the same sort of nonsense is going on. I will say, unfortunately, Kentucky is one of the worst states that I've seen. We do go to some places and this department's not really that bad. Or occasionally we get people who say, oh, we actually did have to change things because of the law. But Kentucky, to me, has been the ultimate example of a get-rich-quick scheme. If you want to make money in Kentucky, get into the business card business, because all these people in DEI have done is simply printed new business cards and kept doing the exact same work. They change their job titles and do the exact same thing. I found some of them change their job title twice in the past year. This was especially common at Louisville. People who changed their job title and moved their office twice in 1 year because of the DEI ban. But then you meet with them when you eventually head down their office and they brag that they're doing the exact same thing. If these people truly weren't breaking the law, why are they changing their job titles and moving multiple times and then bragging about doing the exact same thing laughingly with your tax dollars?
What's funny, Adam, is you bring that up. And one thing I've noticed, because back when this bill was first being discussed, I went through and I created a list real quick of who was in DEI departments within these universities, right? And we have a tool here in Kentucky called Transparency .gov or something like that. And it is where you can do a salary search for anybody who's employed by the state. And of course, these universities are employed by the state. And they're showing up still at the university, but when you do the salary search, you can't find them until you search like their maiden name or until you search with their middle name first. And what you discover is they're literally in the financial database where you can find out who's actively employed and how much they're getting paid. They've changed their names even in order to obscure that they're still employed and still being paid, $250,000 a year to push this kind of garbage.
And if I'm the Attorney General, how is that not fraud? What are they doing if not committing fraud against the taxpayers in your state and, of course, against the taxpayers across the country from all the federal funding this university gets? If what they're doing is so great and so important, why do they have to commit fraud to continue doing it? Why are these students being saddled with so much debt to fund radical left activism? If you want to do this radical left stuff, knock yourself out. Go work for the Democratic Socialists of America or somewhere else. Don't do it with my tax dollars. Don't tell college students that in order to graduate, they've got to take class after class teaching them that capitalism is evil and that America is evil and that those who commit violence against America are merely doing resistance to oppression. That's disgusting. I wouldn't like it if they did it for the DSA, but I certainly don't like it if they do it with my tax dollars.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for your work you're doing and zeroing in on Kentucky, making it better for all of us, doing the kind of work that certainly is important to me, that, we pay thousands of dollars a year in taxes across the board. And certainly when something's going on that's funding political activism, essentially, we certainly want to fight it. Anything you have into the future story-wise, please, send it my way. Open invitation to come on and talk about it when that occurs. Because we definitely want to make sure that we are paying attention to this issue, zeroing in on it, making sure real change happens. I think that's the biggest takeaway I want people to have, is that, hey, look, we don't have to continue to allow this to happen. We don't have to continue to just shake our head and say, well, that's just the way it is. Those universities are just communist cesspools. That's what happens. We don't have to do that. We can be active. Our legislators can get active. They clearly know that this is an important issue, at least to their voters, even if it's not to them. And look, if they don't want to do something, just everybody keep in mind, 3 things motivate legislators: getting elected, staying elected, getting elected to higher office. Those are the 3 things that motivate them. And if they feel like that's under attack, even if they really don't believe in these issues and think it's a big problem, they'll make a difference and make a change. Adam, once again, I just thank you for your time so much. And what was the AIM website again for if they just want to see all your reporting? What was it? AIM.com?
AIM.org, AIM.org. And I love your point. If the California university system was captured by MAGA Republicans, do you think they'd sit back and say, well, there's nothing we could do about it? Heck no. They would get on that and snuff it out immediately. Kentuckians should treat these radical Marxists the exact same way. And AIM.org, AIM.org.
AIM.org, and then DEI in Kentucky, spelled out, right?
Yep, DEI in Kentucky.com, but AIM.org links to that and everything as well. So
okay, so AIM.org, AIM.org to see all of Adam's group's AIM's investigative reporting. And you heard it here. He's got more videos, more things coming out that talk about specifically Kentucky. So I think it's definitely something to pay attention to. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Adam, thank you. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and have a great week. Till next time, we'll be seeing you.